And we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the monthly Rideshare podcast, although we might have to change that name soon because it's actually been several months since we've actually done this. However, we do have the whole gang together again. This is the True Uber Advisory Board. I am, of course, Kevin, the Apptrepreneur, and we have Cecily from Drive Girl Drive. Say hi, Cecily.
Hello, hello.
We've got your driver, Mike. Well, Mike from your driver, Mike, is representing.
Yeah.
Hey,
hello,
Mike.
everyone. Hello.
We've got a random cell phone ringing, and we've got Mark from Uber Hints. Say hi, Mark.
Hey, everybody.
And it's so good to hear your guys' voice again.
Yours too.
Yes, all these months of going on, and it's like, I miss these guys. And then all this stuff started happening in California, started going like, we should probably be talking about this. Even Mark, though he's, in Wisconsin, but, outsider perspective and all that jazz.
I read the news like anybody else.
Exactly. And just a little comment in the live stream. Yes, Dustin, it is live. So we are real. You can comment. I don't know if we're going to have time to do a Q&A afterwards. A couple of us will not be able to do more than an hour. So we're going to try to keep this short, and we've got a lot to discuss. So we are going to jump right into it. And what we are going to be talking about is one big topic. However, there are a lot of little topics within that one topic. And that is, of course, what's going on with Uber and Lyft in California. There's been like a lot of fear about this this bill. I think it's the A5, if I recall.
AB5.
It's a what?
AB5.
AB5. Okay. See, I thought that was on the tip of my tongue, and it was like, I'm just thinking the ABC test. And there's a lot of like fear that it's going to get passed because it very well could. This is California. We definitely like to unionize here, or at least the government does. And there's a lot of fear, like, what's this going to turn Uber and Lyft into? Like, are we going to lose our independent contract status? Are Uber and Lyft even going to stay in California? Like, what happens if it actually passes? I think Mike there's Mike again. Okay. So first of all, before we get into any of this, let's just get our opinion on the independent contractor status personally out of the way. Like, do you want to be an independent contractor? Like, you want to remain an independent contractor, or do you want to become an employee? Let's start with you, Cecily.
Independent contractor works for me.
Okay, Mike?
Independent contractor, definitely.
Okay, Mark?
Independent contractor.
Okay. Now, I also want to be an independent contractor. Now then, the next question, do you actually support the government regulating Uber and Lyft this way? We'll start with Cecily.
Yes, I do.
Okay, Mike.
From what I've read, which isn't a lot, I would say yes. I need to look more into it.
Okay, and Mark?
Oh, boy. I don't think this is a yes or no question.
Try to make it yes and no.
I'm not convinced.
If you had to pick one.
I'm not convinced it's a great idea. I think it was useful because it kind of lit a fire under Uber and Lyft in a way that nothing else could. And I also think that it showed that as drivers, we do have an impact, because I think all of these little demonstrations that drivers have been putting on, although people say, well, it won't have an impact on Uber. And I used to agree, it wouldn't financially, but where it has an impact is in the area of public relations. And I think that's what moved Gonzalez to initiate this bill. So that's a long roundabout answer saying, I think that the bill in itself is not necessarily good, but I think what is happening as a result of the bill possibly could be. But there's more on that, so I'm going to shut up now.
So you're leaning more towards no, then?
I'm leaning more towards a qualified no.
Okay. I'm personally yes. So that's it's interesting. Like the one guy who's not in California is the one who's like, I'm kind of like on the fence about that one. That's why we love Mark. So with that out of the way, the reason I ask those questions for all the listeners at home is I want to make it absolutely clear. You can want to be an independent contractor and remain an independent contractor and yet still be supportive of regulation. And because my personal opinion has been like, I would love for Uber to regulate themselves and not have the government get involved. But honestly, we're at the point where the government almost has no choice but to. They are taking advantage. They've been taking advantage of the drivers and the passengers. Let's be honest. They've been taking advantage of both for years now. And the real funny thing is they're still making bad changes that are taking advantage of everyone while they're asking for our support, which is probably another topic for later in the podcast. But I think these companies are just incompetent. So that's why this is one of those rare situations where I believe sensible government intervention is not a bad thing.
Right.
So I think, and I think even Mark, even though he's leaning towards a no, would kind of agree with that. Maybe, possibly.
Well, now you're adding the words. You have a non sequitur there. You have the words sensible and government.
Okay, yeah, I get, yeah, but still, I mean, it's, what I'm gonna it's gonna be like a little bit of a side note, because what's been amazing to me looking through all of this, and we're of course going to be getting into all the details, but I was actually, I don't know how many of you guys play video games, but I was around at the time where Senator Joseph Lieberman played Mortal Kombat at the arcades and was horrified by the violence and pulled the video game companies inside and said, hey, you need to do something about this. You need to self-regulate yourself somehow, or we're going to come in and we're going to be telling you how to make your games. And the game industry decided they didn't want that. So they made the ESRB rating system. Like, okay, we're going to have a rating system where now we can make the games we want, but we will sufficiently warn parents what games they can and can't get. And the government was like, okay, that's fine. We don't need to do anything. And the reason I bring that up is because it's like Uber and Lyft have had many, many opportunities to do something like that. They could go, hey, we're going to pay the drivers a little bit more. Hey, we're going to be more transparent to the riders about what we're charging. They could do so many things that would have avoided all of this, and they have just seemed unwilling or unable to do so. That's my opinion.
Now, well, what about this, Kevin? Is this one improvement that since Uber, especially in 2015, when they had surge, when literally you didn't really know what price you're paying, to the upfront fare, where as long as the driver really doesn't deviate, the passengers do know what they're paying. Would that be an improvement, at least in the right direction for the passenger?
That would be an improvement, in my opinion,
because it was really a guessing game, and now to the detriment of the passenger. Because I honestly feel for the passenger, because people paid $100+ going, I don't know, a small amount of miles on New Year's Eve. Now, hey, I remember being a driver driving New Year's. I'm sure you guys remember too, and everyone listening you'd make bank on New Year's Eve, but it was to the detriment of the passengers.
Yeah.
Now, if you split it, I always told the passengers, guys, split it 4 ways. Yeah, it could be $100, $25 each. It's reasonable to get you home safely for New Year's. But then, I mean, it's great for you as a driver, but it hurt the passenger. So at least now with upfront fares, at least the passenger knows what they're paying. But again, now the whole problem is with driver pay and constant cuts.
Right. And that was still never a foolproof thing anyway, because I remember one Lyft ride on New Year's Eve when they had implemented that. They called me. They, of course, knew what they were going to pay. They were about an hour away. And we got through like 55 minutes of the hour-long trip, and they realized they forgot their keys. And we had to go all back.
There you go.
The keys. So, but I would consider that a step in the right direction. Although what was interesting is that for a while, Uber was only making improvements on the passenger side, not the driver's side. So
right. They've been kind of slow to respond to driver issues, and I think that just constant conversations about what it's like to be a driver and what's going on, and the fact that there are a lot of folks that are doing this where it's like they can't really ignore the plight of the driver.
Well, you can't ignore it, but when I was being verbal about my answer earlier. If you actually, I don't know if any of you have actually read AB5. I've read it, and in fact, I have it open in front of me right now.
Yeah, well, we're going to discuss that in a moment. And
it is very clear that this is not changing law. What it is doing is expanding what constitutes an independent contractor, which in my mind is not all that healthy. What I think we need to do, because the world is changing around us, whether we like it or not. And I think there needs to be a different category. Yes. And that's the whole problem. We're saying either we are independent contractors, we're employees. And I think there's some ground in the middle. And that's what's being overlooked, because what's going to happen here is if they declare California drivers to be employees, that you think that Uber and Lyft are controlling you now? Wait until they're officially your boss.
Yep.
And I don't know. And that's why I'm saying when you all said, yes, this is good. And I'm thinking, I don't know. Do we really want them cracking the whip?
Well, I have reasons for thinking that it might not be as bad as you think it is. But since you brought up the ABZ test, that's probably the most important thing to start with. Yeah. Can you pass the 3-part test? That's the article I have written up. So the ABC test, which Dynamex failed, and they had to list all their independent contractors as employees, which on a side note, Mark, a year ago when this happened, I remember you made a video and said, I'm not concerned about it. It's not affecting Uber right now. And I said, give it a year. And like a year later, here we are.
So what was that? What was referring what?
That was when we were doing the podcast with your personal driver. And you said, well, I'm not too concerned about this. It hasn't hit Uber and Lyft yet. And I'm like, give it a year.
Oh, you've been waiting to serve that one, Mark.
I don't know. I'm going to have to go back and watch that one.
Yeah. Well, I also predicted Mark would stop driving, by the way. So
review to the tape.
Oh, guess what I was doing this weekend, my friend.
Oh, you were driving.
Yeah.
Okay. Whoa. Well, anyway, ABC test. So we're going to go through this 1 through 3, kind of like the last answer. So the A part, the worker is free from control and direction of the hirer in relation to the performance of the work, both under the contract. So first of all, does that sound like Uber passes that test to all of you guys?
Free from control?
Yeah, free from control and direction of the hirer in relation to the performance of the work.
Theoretically, but with some of those, some of those alerts and things, I think in a way kind of, have a psychological kind of effect on drivers. So, but yeah. I mean, you don't have to pay attention if you don't want to, like to the Quest stuff and the promotions and things like that.
Mm-hmm. So, Mike, Mark, do you guys?
I mean, that's the age-old question: is how much control is control enough to be employees? Because if you cross whatever line that is, then you have to be employees, because the hirer, Uber, is going to be the hirer. They're going to be the boss. They're the employer if you cross that certain line. I mean, I don't know. And I mean, guys, I'm coming kind of from the outside. I haven't done Uber in forever. I just recently started driving on the Lyft platform again. I don't know. I mean, I'm going to kind of leave it up to where is that line? How much control is enough control to be employees, right? I guess that's the whole basis of the argument.
Well, okay. Here's my take. And Cecily, I think that you and I, out of the 4 of us here, are probably the 2 that have the most experience in being true independent contractors.
Okay, maybe.
Is that fair?
I think Kevin's probably there too, but yeah, but that would be fair to say that.
So and the reason I'm saying this, I mean, I have been, doing gig work for 25 years. I know at age 37, you're wondering how's that possible. But,
well, exactly. Same here. I'm at 20, but I'm 15, so there's that.
but when you play around with someone, you write a contract and you have provisions in that contract, right?
Yes, I do. Always.
We never have the option to set our expectations. Never. Everything comes from Uber. So in that regard, I kind of have to say no to that stipulation, because we have the freedom, but the freedom is always within the restrictions by them. I'm not going to write up my contract and say, here are my expectations. Here is what I can do for you as an independent contractor.
Yes, true.
Every other time I've hired myself out, I have a contract that I provide them.
Me too.
Okay, well, I lean towards no, because a lot of the things Uber does, way more in theory, I think in practice does exert control. The not setting your own rates, the you can only cancel so many rides. I think if you're truly free from control, they shouldn't be allowed to tell you to do much of anything except maybe follow the law.
And turn off your app when you want to, even if it initiates a surge.
Yes. Well, no, I think you should be allowed to turn off your app even if it triggers.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If I can work whenever I want,
Right.
then I can turn off that app whenever I darn well please.
Absolutely.
They put a lot of stipulations in there. They have stipulations in how long I have to wait. If someone says, I like that bald guy in the red car, he looks really smart and intelligent, his car looks clean, I want him. But no, Uber is going to make the determination who gets the next ride.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Right. However, I think under most experts that I've been reading agree that Uber passes this one. I slightly disagree, but I guess on a technical level, most have agreed that they passed this. However, one of these they definitely did not pass. So here's the B part of the test. The worker performs work that is outside the usual course of the hirer's business.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a no, right?
Right.
Well, I don't know. They're a technology company, aren't they? They're not a rideshare.
I knew that's the argument, right? I knew that was going to be the argument.
Yeah, but they also say that the drivers are their customers, and yet the drivers they don't take into consideration. Also, we all know it. Also, Uber has changed what they are time and time again. Like, I think at one point they actually classified themselves as a payment service.
Mm.
So at one point they were a social network, which I'm kind of like, what are you talking about? You're not a social network. Like, there's nothing social about this.
Right.
So now, if there is someone who's going to make an argument that this is a yes, it could be that, well, there's Uber Eats, and in a sense, you could get on Uber Freight. So you can do things that are not rideshare. And maybe they might even make that technology argument. However, since Uber is pretty much considered a rideshare service first and foremost, most experts have decided that this is a fail.
All right, now if we look at line 6A in AB, and that's referring to hairstyling or barbering, but I would imagine that can be extended because they can't be expected to mention every profession in this bill. Right. They have 3 subcategories under free from direction or control. And it says sets their own rates for services performed. How many of you have been able to set your own rates?
Only lower, Uber says. They said you can't set rates, but only lower. Imagine that.
You cannot set. I can't set the rate. I can accept the rate, but I can't set it.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? I can't say I'll take that ride for $20. Well,
Right.
I'll take for 15. We can't do that. And then the second one says set their own hours of work. Okay, maybe they could do that. Yeah. The third one says has their own book of business clients. They specifically prohibit us from doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
And people have found workarounds, but we cannot have our own book of business clients. So in that regard, they absolutely fail. And that's all on subcategory right from the bill under free from direction or control.
Yeah. I agree. So here's the C part, and then we'll talk about the petition, which will probably get the most heated. The worker is customarily engaged in an independently established trade, occupation, or business of the same nature as the work performed for the hirer. And that's a mouthful.
We can go to Lyft if we want to, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And you can do Postmates, and you can do DoorDash for some reason if you want, and you can do Grubhub. You can do E20, the marijuana delivery gig app.
Mm-hmm.
Not in Wisconsin, you can't.
Well, over here you can. So I think that one is a pass, in my opinion, and most experts agree that's a pass. So the big issue seems to be the worker performs work that is outside the usual course of the hires business, because Uber and Lyft, I think especially Lyft, because Lyft hasn't diversified at all, really. Their primary thing is transportation.
Yeah.
And I think there's some question about whether they pass A, because there has been more and more control exerted over the drivers recently. Like, I think we discussed this like a year ago when me and Aaron and Mark were talking about this. We said that Uber did pass A, and now we're here a year later, and granted we have Cecily here as well this time, but and Mike, were you in that episode last year?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay, so yeah, I don't think you were either. So we have Cecily and Mike, and now we're all kind of like, technically we might, but it's a very shaky yes.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a lot of wiggle room on that one.
Yeah.
So
I think they exert a lot of control, and just because control isn't direct, I mean, when you look at the labor movements on the turn of the century, when they had the sweatshops, and then moving up to the 30s when they had the AFL and CIO and Teamsters all getting together. That was all on the heels of this kind of stuff, when people they say that they could abide by the letter of the law, but not by the intent and spirit of the law. And I think that Uber and Lyft are by no means, applying the intent and spirit of the law, which is why you're coming up with this AB5 that is having to detail and outline what exactly that law means.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, I think. Right. I agree. You've been quiet for a while, Mike. Do you have an opinion on this?
Well, I'm just thinking about the overall kind of result of all of this, because I'm trying to imagine a world. Like, I'm just thinking here. Imagine a world where this app is employee status, and I'm just trying to. I was actually just imagining my day to day if this were to change and drivers were employees, and if I'm working, and half of drivers are working another kind of job, half of drivers are full time generally. I'm just thinking how my days would change. Would I have to drive these shifts? I mean, if you guys remember, and they still have this, but Amazon, while they did get rid of Amazon restaurants, you can still do Prime, you can still do Fresh, and you're signing up for block deliveries like some of these other apps. And I can't imagine a world where, let's say I drive Uber or even Lyft, where I'm really mandated to drive certain shifts with so much less flexibility. Mm-hmm. I mean, you talk about the sustainability of rideshare. If this classification were to be turned over to employee status, I don't know. I could see a lot of their driver pool just crumbling. That would be concerning for me. I'm trying to think of my day to day, and I can imagine people listening to this. Like, imagine your day to day completely changing if you are an employee of Uber.
Yeah, although you might have hit upon something with the blocks, though. Maybe the blocks is one of those middle of the ground things where it's like, okay, you pick the blocks that you work.
That would be fine. Yeah, that would be fine. But my problem with the blocks on Flex and other, like even DoorDash, is at least on Flex they disappeared almost instantly. And Flex did have almost a reservation system, at least in beta, for their blocks, which helped with that. But imagine all the drivers in your marketplace. Think about it. If half of drivers are working the 9 to 5, they're only free before or after work.
Yeah.
So imagine you're trying to funnel drivers through what? 4 shifts in the evening, right? And that's the only shift that these drivers can do, and they're mandated to take those shifts. That's scary.
Well, yeah. Well, obviously we need to discuss. We're now kind of jumping the gun a little bit. We might as well talk about it now. So, this is why we would ultimately all like the system to stay the way it is. However, the way Uber and Lyft has treated us that's why people are protesting. At the same token, it's like, but is all as scary as it is, like maybe to actually have to work, is it so scary that it's going to, that you're going to forget about it once you're making $3 a mile or something like that? Or
I think the problem is that Uber particularly has shown their true colors, and they've shown that they cannot be trusted. And so when they say, "Oh no, if you vote this down, we'll be good. We'll improve rates." Well, they've had the opportunity to improve rates, and it's never happened. And this is the problem. It's do you trust the devil you know or the devil you don't know?
I want to add to that because Mark just hit the nail on the head of what I've been thinking about guys, people listening to this, drivers, you only really care about pay. This is pay. Yes, flexibility as well, but come on, pay. Now, to Mark's point, if you did this right, and if Uber was an employer and they mandated and they set the prices, if you're kind of the good guys, now Amazon, we were talking about blocks, they do $18 an hour gross. Pre-tax, it's $18 an hour. I think that's fair enough. Now, if Uber were to actually, take the high road, but I'm really concerned. I honestly, I don't trust them to do that. I don't think they would do that. And if they have some control now over pricing, it scares me what control they may have and would have as an employer. Because I don't see them being like, oh yeah, guys, here's some shifts at $18 an hour pre-tax. I don't know. I'm thinking a lot lower.
No, yeah, no, I'm sure that Uber would find a way to, jerk everyone around. That's for certain. So it's.
Well, I mean,
if this passed, do you think that they would stay in California?
Yeah.
Would it even be worth their while to keep running? I know it's a huge market, but it's also would be a market where they are now going to have thousands and thousands of employees with benefits, or would they do this? Would we all become part-time employees and you could not drive more than 5 hours?
Yeah.
You would not have to pay benefits.
Well, in all fairness, most people who comment on my channel say they want to stay independent contractor because they don't do this full-time. If you're doing it full-time, then this is probably, unless they don't make you full-time, then because that was like the whole thing with the whole fallacy of Obamacare was like they were going to force all the companies that made you work more than 30 hours to pay benefits. And the answer most companies did was to work you as part-time. So, there is a precedent for companies doing that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
But this is why I like the discussions, because now I'm having this and it's like I'm starting to feel the fear that some of my viewers have about this whole thing, how fast it really makes you feel uncomfortable when you think about how much of it can actually change, and that Uber and Lyft still have a certain amount of control over all this, and they're just going to be working within new guidelines. Now, here's the other question, though, because in theory, even if this thing were to pass, Uber and Lyft could still keep you as independent contractors. They just have to concede some things. They have to start giving, I think, from what I understand, they would have to start letting you, maybe there's a base fare, but they have to let you, charge more if you want. They have to tell you exactly what the ride entails, 100%, how much you're going to make, how long it's potentially going to be, where it's going. This whole auto ad thing has to go. There's a lot of things that they can actually do if this passes, that they can keep independent contractors. But at that point, we are truly independent contractors. Do you think Uber and Lyft would be willing to do that so that they don't have to give up California?
They might not have a choice.
Yeah. They're going to do whatever works for them. I think that's really what it comes down to.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think there's any real cause for alarm. Things change all the time. You've got to be fluid in this market. I don't think this is something that people should be fearful of. And it's just a reminder that this is temporary work, and this is something that you need to be transitioning to something else. Absolutely. I've always said that. And so, I think that regulation is good for those people that I know that drive full time. I feel for those people. And I'm like, hey, I think that as much time you put into that, you definitely should have a decent living. However, I don't think that this is a sustainable job.
That's a sad thing. It used to be sustainable.
But that's the thing, is it used to be. No, it was temporarily. It's a temporary thing. It's not sustainable for an extended amount of time. I can go to Vegas and hit big for a day, maybe a weekend, but it's not going to always be that way. And it's just not smart in this economy and this type of world to think that even your job that you go to every single day is going to be there.
Yeah.
Well, I agree with you. I mean, the only person, my mindset has always been the only person that I can depend on, the only company I can depend on is me.
Absolutely.
Decision myself. When I'm an employee, I am at their whim. Any day I get fired. And the other thing I've never heard discussed is how many tax benefits would we be giving up? For example, if I'm driving, I can count my miles. If I'm an employee, I don't get mileage when I go to the office and back, when I go to the factory and back. That's just on me.
Well, just to let you know, I don't know how it is over there, but when I delivered pizza for Roundtable, I don't have a tax lawyer, but he does taxes. He told me that while you're driving on the company's time, you can still write that off. So,
and what is company time when you're on Uber? As soon as you put on the app, right?
Probably. Well, technically, you're only supposed to be counting the mile. At least Uber says you're only supposed to be counting the miles when you've got a passenger in the car. I mean, I think we all count all the miles.
Yeah, and we have had
miles would probably still be counted that you
professional and everybody else arguing that one back and forth. It's just my point. Where I think we give up a lot along the lines of tax benefits. That's one of the things when I've been self-employed that's always gotten me through, because if you play the tax game properly, that's how you make a lot of your money.
Absolutely. I do every year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely have some tax benefits myself. All right. Well, keep in mind, one of the reasons people want change, though, is because they do not like seeing, their rates go from like $2.80 to 60 cents a mile. They don't like seeing their surge, like someone's paying $300 in surge and they're getting $10 of that. That's why.
Yeah.
People, so I did. Not that I've been paying too much attention, but Revelation 2:7 said unreimbursed employee expenses were phased out in 2019 thanks to changes made under the Obama administration. I don't know if that's true, but that would explain a lot if it is. So that would explain why a lot of people are fearful of not having their mileage write-off. So now the one thing we do have to, because it's amazing how fast time goes by. We kind of jumped to the last topic there, but there is one little bit of irony in all of this, and that is, of course, the petition. Because I think the petition is kind of what reinforced a lot of people that when they saw it, when they read it, any concern they might have had kind of went out the window in a second, because the arrogance is so high with this petition, where Uber and Lyft basically said, hey, sign this petition because the government's going to take away your flexibility. You don't want that, do you? We need your help. And it's not the first time they've done this, where when they need our help, they like almost threaten us. Like, you need to do this or you're going to hate this. And it's like, yeah, you are constantly cutting our rates, stealing our surge, saying we can and can't get off the app, which, by the way, that's why you're failing the ABC test. And yet you have the galls to ask us to sign a petition, which, by the way, petitions are completely pointless. Petitions do not work. I'm sorry, guys, they don't.
You hurt somebody's feelings.
Oh, did we?
Somebody's feelings. Somewhere.
By saying that petitions don't work?
Yes. People love petitions.
Well, they love petitions because they feel like they're doing something, but they're not really doing. Name one petition that actually made a difference.
I can't think of any.
You know what petitions do? It's the same thing that the rider demonstrations did. They attract attention. That's what they do. They're poking the sleeping giant, and that's it. I mean, they're not going to influence you, but they're going to make people sometimes wake up and pay attention and start the debate. But you see, it's been so apparent the way that Uber and Lyft, and particularly Uber, went about trying to get signatures on this petition, that I think it's doing more harm for their cause than good.
Mm.
Oh yeah, they put it in the app.
Oh, and if you look at that, the way that it was put in, it's mixed right in with some of the important stuff. That, quick sign this. You got to take a picture of your insurance card. Oh, there's a petition to sign here. And particularly from what I've been reading, that people who have English is not their first language didn't have a really good understanding. They thought, everything else I do in here is pretty important. I guess I better sign that if I want to keep working and keep driving and stay on the platform.
How many times have they rushed to get you to do something? And they always do. They say, hey, I know you wanted to take that ride, but you need to take a selfie real quick before you can go online, right when you were going to go online when it's super busy. Or I know this is when you usually clock in. It's like 2 a.m. Bars are letting out. But we've updated our terms of service, and you can't access the platform until you click agree down below. Just do it real quick, and you can go online, right?
Right.
You got it.
Yeah. And by the way, one of the funniest thing about this petition that people have emailed me, and this was because Lyft, by the way, had their own little petition, like, hey, sign our petition as well. And they did the same thing Uber did. They said, hey, we want to work with you. We want to give you benefits. We want to work on your pay. Trust us. Don't let the government step in and regulate. We will help you out. Sign this petition. And in the midst of asking people to sign that petition, they cut the rates for Lyft. They're basically their Lyft Black version of Lyft Black. They cut the rates. In Honolulu is as high as 50%.
Well, they also came out with that, now they're going to pay you for your way to the pickup. And then sometimes they slashed it 50, 60, 70% in what I'm seeing, what people are sending me the screenshots.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the same verbiage play. I mean, you remember years ago, the winter warm-ups and all that, they'd, send a long email just to passively say that the rates are getting cut. Yes, same thing.
Yeah, but that was just amazing. You guys are in a corner right now. I think you're in a corner. You're acting like you're in a corner. I mean, if you're trying to push a petition around, you're acting like you're backed into a corner. And you're asking the drivers, who, by the way, are not particularly happy with you right now. That's why the government is taking notice, to support you, and we will take care of you. And in the midst of that, you cut their rates. Oh my gosh, how stupid are you? Yeah, you'll have to laugh.
Between a rock and a hard place, isn't it?
Well, and this is why. I mean, look, I'm definitely understanding, especially after this podcast, more there's some real dangers to this, for this bill passing and us being employees. But you see the arrogance so much, it's I almost just want to see what would happen. Because it almost can't be worse.
Famous last words.
Yeah.
I know. Famous last words. Someone saying, have you met our government? It's yeah, I have, and I know that. However, again, I don't blame the government in this case. I don't blame the politicians. I don't blame the protesters. I blame Uber and Lyft. They completely mismanaged this situation. And by the way, people like us, at least I remember I made videos. I told them this was going to happen in a few years if they didn't stop doing this. And now we're here. So, you're
now,
laughing, Cecily.
What's interesting is now there's a completely new dynamic.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Go for it.
There's two brand new publicly listed companies. Now we have two stocks. Mm-hmm. These companies are now brand new, trying to jostle in the marketplace. Mm-hmm. I mean, Lyft's dropped 30 points when they first launched. Uber did a little bit better, but I think the last I checked, they're still fluctuating. So, I mean, and remember, Uber posted what? A $1.3 billion loss in 2018. There's profitability too. So not only do you have unhappy drivers, you have this petition, you have legal stuff going on, you have brand new publicly listed companies. Guys, you have profitability. I mean, end all be all, is your company even going to be here in 5 years? They have that to worry about too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. And I still don't completely understand. Well, I know that they're investing a lot of money in these driverless cars,
Uber Air.
flying cars. They're investing in. They're investing in drones that seem to do nothing but add expense to delivering food. Like now that they're publicly traded, and there's all this stuff. They really should be reeling some of those things in. I actually read the S1 filings and seriously contemplated doing a live stream, but it would have been hours. And in both the live streams, they admitted like we can't afford minimum wage drivers, and it's like that doesn't sound like a stable company when you can't afford minimum wage.
Yeah.
Like, and by the way, that should also tell people just how low your rates are, because if they can't afford minimum wage, it means most of you aren't making minimum wage.
That's very true.
Yeah. So
after taxes, especially, that's very true.
Yep. Now, Cecily, why were you laughing so hard earlier?
The passion of it all. It tickled me, and I didn't find it funny. I just have a nervous laughter thing that I'm working on. Am I
taking this too seriously? Should I tone it down?
No, I like you for you, Kevin. This is why you are the man, and you do what you do. I honestly think that you are one of the few people who do see things like you see things as they are now, and you do project, whereas a lot of us are just in the moment. A lot of us are just trying to get the dollar and keep it moving. And I think that it's important for there to be people who are projecting and saying, in the long term, this may not be good for us in X, Y, Z. So I appreciate you for being that person, but it's just at the same time, I just kind of acknowledge it, like, oh yeah, you've thought about this, you've projected this, and you're seeing this coming to fruition. And it's a reminder that a lot of people need to be more forward thinking and think about what could happen in the future.
Yeah,
you see what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, well, I'm always thinking about my future. That's the premarital counseling. Me and Katie have a lot of things to talk about, and it's pretty clear that I was kind of thinking 5 years down the road more than she was. But about certain things, won't get into it. But things are going great, and we're looking forward to the wedding. So yeah, I've always because here's the thing, at the last strike, like someone asked me, like, so why do you get so passionate about Uber? Like, why do you do it? And I said, because I love Uber. Because when I started this, I really did love it, and I like doing it. I thought about doing it full time. For a while, I was doing it full time, but once they started making changes, I was already like in panic mode. Like, wait a minute, if you go down this path, and I called this pretty much every step of the way, and I wish I didn't. Like that was so. It's actually kind of disappointing to see me be right. It's like, well, I couldn't predict that movie pass stock would tank, and I lost a few $100s. But boy, I could predict this. I didn't want this to be right.
Right.
So, and anyway, I think, are there any closing comments that anyone will? Because this kind of went a little. Well, first of all, did anyone here sign that petition?
Nope.
No.
Well, Mark can't sign the petition.
I can't sign it.
I'm in Wisconsin. I can't sign it.
Yeah. So okay. Well, I didn't sign it. So yeah. I mean, I'm sure that's no surprise there. So does anyone have any final thoughts about any of this? What your fears are? What you would hope would happen? Mike, let's start with you on that one.
I'm thinking
come out of this.
Yeah, I'm thinking super macro right now. Like, again, while you were just talking about that, I'm thinking super macro gig economy. I mean, these companies were founded in 2012, 2019, going on in 2020. It's still so new. And it's really curious to me. And Kevin, I think you said this, or just kind of carried the narrative of someone saying, hey, is the golden area of rideshare dead? It makes me think about the macro. Is the gig economy peaking, or has it already peaked for these apps, or is this a movement of more government regulation, more of these companies are going to, government's going to say, hey, no, sorry guys, you're enacting too much control over these independent contractors. They're actually employees. You're going to have to pay benefits. And actually, I told my audience this with Amazon Flex, because they did have somewhat controlling behavior of the shifts, etc. So I'm just thinking about everyone in the macro of where are we going to be in 5 to 10 years in the gig economy? Is it still going to be feasible? Is it going to be something that people just end up giving up and say, nah, I'm not doing that gig stuff. I'm going W-2. It's too much of a pain. I mean, it's a more macro answer, certainly, but I'm very curious the next 5 to 10 years where this gig economy is going to be.
Okay, so Cecily, I'll save you for last, Mark. I'm sure you've got a long answer, but what do you?
Well, I mean, it's funny because I actually took on a position recently where I'm managing a department of sorts, but I'm an independent contractor, and I had some concerns about that because it's steady pay and it's going to be, a decent amount, and I'm like, okay, so how is this going to work? And I had to negotiate my expectations on how that I see that role, my time, my hours, and that sort of thing. So piggybacking off of what Mark said, I feel like the role of the independent contractor is going to change. And adding to what you said, Mike, it's not going to be so cut and dry with the W-2s or the independent contractors. And so that we all need to be flexible. We all need to understand what these laws are. They don't necessarily just pertain to rideshare. This may be the kind of thing that you'll be doing in the future, your kids will be doing, and that sort of thing. And so when you approach education, when you approach the type of jobs that you pick, the type of careers that you pick, these are the kinds of things that you need to consider, because if you're in a market where you're working solely for yourself, where you will be considered an entity, you want to be doing a sort of thing that's going to be able to sustain your life, make enough money to do whatever it is that you need to do. And this is a reality. It's not going to stop. Why I see a lot of folks go back and forth to the full-time gig and the part-time gig and the Uber and that kind of thing. There's going to be a certain point where you're going to be a contractor, period. You know what I mean? So it's like you have to figure out how to survive in this new marketplace. And so I think that folks that are doing rideshare actually have a leg up in understanding how to adapt in that space, even right down to how to file your taxes. And if you don't know how to do it, you need to learn how to do it. Everybody file your own taxes next year. I'm done.
All right, Mark.
All right. Well, first of all, one of the things I like about having Cecily here is she's always real consistent with the message that I also agree with. And that is, you have to understand you don't have to be locked into anything. When you're in the gig economy, it means if one gig ain't working over here, you got to go somewhere else.
Yep.
My concern is just recently in the comments here, there's a comment that says rebuke the oppressor, and Uber is oppressing. And it's unfortunate, but what's happening with Uber is they really are taking advantage of the weakest people in the job market. And they're people that need the jobs. And as a result, I think Uber and Lyft kind of feel that there's always going to be that next wave of drivers coming up because there's always someone that's in need. And that's what scares me, regardless of what direction it goes. I would love to see, ideally, what I wish would happen is the bill would fail, but Uber and Lyft would wake up and say, oh my God, we really, missed that by the skin of our teeth. We better shape up. But I think we all know that's not going to happen.
Oh, wow.
And
Mark,
so on the other side of the coin, on the other side of the coin, we have, the government stepping in, and then Uber and Lyft might say, we can't make a go of it. And, we're used to hearing, boy, a company so big it can't fail. Well, this one, having no employees, can fail very easily. So I don't know that there's really a win on either side of this. The win is my fairy tale of Uber and Lyft, this being a wake-up call. But I just don't think it's going to happen. And I kind of feel sorry for the people in California because I think you're the guinea pig in this.
Yeah, well, you just said something that it's like, ideally you might have hit on the nice middle ground where it's like, it would ideally be that situation where it's like, yeah, the bill would fail. However, Uber and Lyft would realize, shoot, we dodged a bullet. We better get this together. We don't want this to happen again. Let's start figuring out like what we need to do so that this never happens again. Unfortunately, this is such an incompetent company. I mean, let's face it, Lyft cutting rates while they're asking for drivers' help does not scream a company that has clearly thought things out.
I was going to say, that'd be kind of a wildly positive pivot for one of these companies to do that. That would be a completely positive mindset shift for them to actually do something like that.
Yeah, it would be great though. So
it would be, but is it something that they're like, Kevin, like what you just said? I'm like, it would be great, but come on, we know these companies, right?
Yeah. So it's just I mean, I'm trying to think like what would the nice little middle ground be ultimately aside from that. Well, I don't know. I kind of lost my train of.
Well, the middle ground was back where they started, do a 20-80 split and stop the shenanigans, and hijinks, the tomfoolery, and all those words that I like to say in my podcast and my side of the channel. But I think that when it started, a lot of us were pretty happy, and then they started monkeying.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, people say that I complain about Uber all the time. Like, guys, go back to the first few weeks of videos, and I mean, there's three things you're going to notice. One, you're going to notice poor camera quality. Two, you're going to notice someone a lot fatter there. And three, you're going to notice someone who's a lot more positive about Uber and even saying you don't want the government to get involved. You're fools if you want to be regulated. Now, you clearly have to eat those words. It's just amazing how things have changed. I think that if this bill failed, Uber and Lyft would basically go back to doing what they were doing. And that's the sad thing about it. I ultimately think this could have been a good thing for everyone. People could have been more independent. A lot of jobs were created. Congestion was certainly a problem, but overall, there was a lot of positive things going on, and they just messed it up every step of the way. And now we're here, sitting here contemplating the future. I mean, here's another question. I guess I should just throw this out there. If Uber and Lyft actually get to the point where they're forced to close shop in California, do you think that would be enough to teach them a lesson about the other 49 states, that they can't do this in the other 49 states? Or do you think they're just going to push the limit until they're all regulated?
Wow.
They won't wake up and smell the toast burning. I mean, California is a whole different world. And I think if they make it through California, they're going to say it's free sailing. We just passed the biggest litmus test, and we passed it. And so let's keep on the route we're going, because it must be the right way to go. And I'm afraid that's the message they'll take away.
Yeah, you're probably right. So, well, anyway, that was a fun episode. Well, actually, it was fun because we all got together again.
That's right.
And we all pretty much agreed for a change.
We're pretty good. Yeah, we're pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And what's funny about that is, like, I always thought that a show where we all agreed would be boring. And yet there was still like a huge dynamic there. So I picked great co-hosts when I decided to do this thing.
Oh, come on. You gotta say that.
Oh, I really did. Although, to all you YouTubers who don't get along with everyone, you know what? This is what you're missing. I'm sorry. It's like I hope to see you all, you guys, and Peterson, because I see him lurking in the chat room. Hope to see all you guys at the wedding if you can make it.
Yes,
so,
I'll be there.
Very good.
As for all the viewers and listeners, we don't have time. I wish we had time to do a Q&A, but I believe Cecily and Mike have to leave in like 5 minutes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you said about an hour. We're at 50 minutes or
you
something.
can post questions in the comments, guys. We can get you in the comments after.
Yeah. So post a question in the comments. There is one question someone asked. I think we should probably quickly answer this one. I think it's always fun to go back to this, but someone asked the question: Do you think it was better? Do you think this was worse than when Travis Kalanick was the CEO? No, interesting. Okay, no from Mike.
The Kalanick was worse, in my opinion.
Oh, that's true.
I definitely think I agree with Mike. It's not worse.
Okay.
It's not nearly as entertaining. He was fun to watch. He was, sometimes you just can't take your eye off the car wreck.
Oh yeah, watching him try to explain how Uber Eats works to Conan O'Brien was embarrassing.
That was a funny interview.
That's the kind of thing that should have made people who invest in Uber go like, God, that's our CEO. I'm just gonna say it is worse, if only because the fact that the regulation is even here and we're talking about it this way and we're wondering about the future. I'm gonna just say yes.
Well, it's worse because look what we were paid. We were paid not handsomely by any means, but we were paid a reasonable fee where you could get out and you could, if you hustled, you could make bank. Mm-hmm. Now you can hustle just to, and I hear it all the time from my viewers, as do all of you, because a lot of our viewers are the same people. But, we hear that I'm working twice as many hours for the same pay. And so it's worse now.
Yeah.
Right. And to the people who say like, well, what about those guys that make $2,000 a week? It's like, guys, driving 60 to 70 hours a week is not reasonable.
Or 80.
No.
90.
It's just,
that is not a life. That is not a life.
No
way. It's not. So, hey, if you want to do that, then yeah, go ahead. That's fine. But no, that's not a reasonable way to live, in my opinion. So, anyway, so that will wrap up this episode, and hopefully this one won't be lost like the last episode was.
Oh, no.
Yeah, last time when Dustin was on, and maybe his computer brought a virus or something. The podcast disappeared like 20 minutes after it went up, and I don't.
We've got to bring Dustin back though. That was a fun time too.
Oh yeah, he's fun to have. I mean, So, well, whenever Cecily or Mike, because Mark, you're pretty consistent. Whenever Cecily or Mike don't show up, then maybe we'll bring Dustin back.
There you go.
You said I'm consistent. I'm the reason that we're here today instead of yesterday. Remember?
Yeah, that's also how much we like having you here, though. That we all agreed to do that. So, anyway, like Rideshare Lisa says, this is fun. You should do this more often. Yeah, well, we used to do it more often. Although I take the blame for that because, as I was talking before we started recording, I've been doing a lot of wedding planning, and so that takes a lot of time. And behind the scenes, something had to go, and the podcast was something that definitely got put on the back burner. However, this is like a reminder how much I actually enjoy it. So I'm going to try to get this back to monthly if we can, one way or the other. So anyway, so that's going to be it. So to all you listening, watching, you can check out all of our channels below. You can subscribe to all of them. Click those bells. And, well, I always say flame responsibly. And now we know what that means. So, yeah, flame responsibly. Have a good one.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, guys.
So long, everyone.